The story of Jacob and his life and struggles. Genesis 25 through 49. Jacob, son of Isaac, grandson of Abraham, was born with his twin brother Esau in Beersheba, Canaan. Jacob came out of the womb, grasping onto Esau's heel, symbolizing him trying to grasp onto Esau's rights as the firstborn. Genesis 25. While he was in the womb, he wrestled with his brother. Genesis 25 verse 23. When his mother asked God what was happening, he said, "The sons in your womb will become two nations. From the very beginning, the two nations will be rivals. One nation will be stronger than the other, and your older son will serve your younger son." And Genesis 25 verse 23. Jacob was the favorite of his mother, Rebekah, as he was quiet and helped keep the home. However, Esau was Isaac's favorite because he was a skillful hunter. Genesis 25 verse 27. One day Esau had gone out hunting and came back feeling as if he might starve to death. He asked his brother for his stew, but Jacob demanded that he sell him his birthright in exchange. Esau agreed, knowing that his father would still bless him and that he had no need of his birthright if he was going to die of hunger. Genesis 25 verses 29 to 34. When Isaac was going blind and worried he might die soon, he called his son Esau to go hunt for some game, make him some stew, and return so he could pass down his blessing. However, when Isaac's wife Rebekah heard this, she called for Jacob and dressed him in Esau's clothes. She made Isaac's favorite food and put animal skin on Jacob to make him appear hairier like Esau. Genesis 27. When Esau found out, he wanted to kill his brother. So Rebekah told Isaac to send Jacob to find a wife from her family's side. She did this so that Jacob would be far away from Esau. Genesis 28. Jacob, obeying his mother's command, went to the land of Haran where his uncle Laban lived. During his travel to Haran, Jacob had a vision. In his vision he saw a grand ladder reaching towards the heavens. There, God affirmed the covenant that he had promised to Jacob's grandfather Abraham, showing that despite Jacob's sins, God always keeps his promises. Genesis 28 verses 10 to 22. Once Jacob was in Haran, he stops by a large well and speaks to shepherds there. They tell him that Laban's daughter Rachel is coming there. When Rachel had reached the well, he lifts the heavy stone by himself to impress/help her. Overcome with emotion, Jacob kisses her and weeps, overwhelmed by the joy of finding her. Genesis 29 verses 9 to 11. He then tells Rachel that he is her relative, the son of Rebekah, and she runs to inform her father, Laban, of his arrival. Jacob stays at Laban's house for a month, and after this time he asks Laban what his wages should be. In response, Jacob expresses his deep love for Rachel and offers to work for 7 years in exchange for her hand in marriage. Genesis 29 verses 15 to 18. After the 7 years pass, Jacob eagerly requests to marry Rachel. However, on the wedding night, Laban deceives him. He ensures that Jacob has drunk enough wine to be unaware, and instead of sending Rachel to him, he sends his older daughter, Leah, wearing a heavy veil. Jacob, unaware of the deception, marries Leah instead of Rachel. Genesis 29 verses 21 to 25. Upon realizing the trickery, Jacob confronts Laban, asking why he has been deceived, much like Jacob had previously deceived his own father, Isaac. Genesis 27. Laban explains that it is not customary to marry off the younger daughter before the older one. He offers Rachel to Jacob in exchange for another 7 years of labor. Because of his love for Rachel, Jacob agrees to work another 7 years, which pass by for him like only a few days because of his deep affection for her. Genesis 29 verses 26 to 30. Once he was done working for her, he worked another 6 years to acquire a flock from Laban. In those years, Laban has changed his wages 10 times, and Rachel and Leah had competed with each other to have the most children. Yet God heard them all, and for the wages that changed, God made them change in Jacob's favor. And when one wife felt unloved, God will open up their wombs. Due to this, Jacob had 11 sons, eventually one more, and a daughter named Dinah. Jacob eventually decided to go away from his uncle at the Lord's command, so he packed up all his things and his wives and children and left before Laban could find out. However, eventually Laban caught up to them and said, "I could destroy you, but the God of your father appeared to me last night and warned me, leave Jacob alone." And Genesis 31 verse 29. Laban then asked if they could make a convent and kiss his children and grandchildren goodbye. Then he left Gilead. As Jacob was heading towards his father's land, he sent out his servants ahead of him with gifts for Esau, hoping to calm any wrath he might have. But later that night he saw a man and wrestled with him. He refused to let the man go until he had blessed him. The man then touched his hip and it wrenched from its socket. He then changed Jacob's name to Israel, since you have fought with God and with men and have won. And Genesis 32 verse 28. After his encounter with God, Jacob went on to encounter his brother Esau. He sent several servants ahead of him with many gifts for Esau in hopes that it will calm his anger the night before. When they saw each other, they ran into an embrace and weep. Genesis 33 verse 4. Esau didn't even want the gifts, but Jacob insisted. Esau's forgiveness moved Jacob, and he even said, "Seeing your face is like seeing the face of God." NLT Genesis 33 verse 10. Jacob finally settled in Canaan after that, but family troubles never did. His sons one day sold his favorite child Joseph out of jealousy. Genesis 37 verse 28. His daughter gets raped and two of his sons kill the whole town in revolt. Genesis 24. His son Reuben slept with his concubine. Genesis 35 verse 22. And eventually there is a famine in the land. Genesis 42. He sent his sons to Egypt to acquire some food, and eventually, after going back and forth, they discovered that Joseph, his favorite son who was sold into slavery, was now second in charge of Egypt. Jacob was finally able to see his son again, and Joseph blessed them tremendously. Jacob stayed in Egypt until his death, and his family eventually buried him in Canaan. Genesis 45 to 46. From Jacob's descendants, the nation of Israel was born, and from his son came 12 tribes. And in one of the tribes a Savior was born, one who will live forever, making Jacob's descendancy everlasting. Genesis 49. Thank you for watching.